Hello again, friends. So in this video, we are going to talk about methods of a paper. So you might be wondering why I'm starting off with methods in the first video on this series, because usually when you start reading a paper, you start with the introduction, then go on to the methods later. However, while writing the paper, you do it differently. It's always easier to start with the methods because by the time you are beginning to write the paper, the method section of your paper is practically done. So while writing, it's the easiest to write the methods, and so we start with methods while writing. So let's see, what does the methods section consist of? There are certain components of a good method section of an original article. So let's say, what is the broad approach to the methods of the article? You should include the study design. What was your study like? Was it a cohort study? Was it a cross-sectional study? Was it an experimental study? You should clearly state in your methods what was the study design. You should write what was the duration of the study, what was the period in which the study was done, and what was the setting of the study. You should discuss how the sample size was determined, how you arrived at a particular sample size, and what was the size that you took for your study. What was the sampling strategy is the next point that you write in the methods. How did you collect the sample? Was it a random sample? What was it, a strategic sample? Or was it a sample of convenience? You need to state clearly what was the sampling strategy that you adopted to collect your participants in the study. Then you need to identify what was the study population, what were the inclusion criteria, and what were the exclusion criteria. A very important distinction that I would like to make here, that is a problem that most of the people make while writing their proposals or writing their papers. Please remember, inclusion criteria are a set of definitions which tell you that if the patient or if the individual completed these criteria, he became eligible to get included in the study. And he was included in the study after he met these criteria. However, the exclusion criteria are those criteria which, if found among those who were included, were then excluded from the study. A lot of people will make a mistake that they will say that we excluded patients who did not consent to participate. Obviously, that's not an exclusion criteria. You cannot include participants who have not consented, and you can't exclude someone whom you've not even included. Some people will say that I included people who were more than 50 years of age in my study. And then in the exclusion criteria, you will find it is said that we excluded individuals who were less than 50 years of age. Now, you did not even include those who were less than 50 years of age. And how could you exclude them after inclusion? So that doesn't make sense. So please remember that exclusion criteria are the set of criteria which, if met, will exclude the participants who have already been included in the study. So exclusion criteria come out of the inclusion criteria. I hope I have made that distinction very clear. Then you describe the intervention or the approach. What did you do with the people whom you have included? How did you study them? What intervention did you apply on these participants? Then you also discuss the statistical analysis plan of your study. How will you analyze the data? What will you do with the data that you gather? And then what are the ethical considerations? You obviously say that you will start the study, or you started the study only after the institutional ethics committee cleared your proposal. You will say that you included participants only if they consented to participate. And you will also say probably that the participants were free to leave the study and there was no coercion involved in including them, or there was no threat involved in their excluding from participation, or they deciding to leave the study in between without assigning any reason. So these 8 points should be there in the methods section of the paper, and it's always better to have these as clear subheadings within the methods section so that when the editor is reviewing the paper or a reviewer is reviewing the paper, then he can see these components very clearly in the method section without having to stress or strain to find these individual sections of the paper. The idea of writing a method section is to provide enough detail so that if anyone else wants to do this study, they should be able to replicate this study in the same fashion. You need to tell what type of patients were recruited, how the condition was identified, what was the setting of the research, and you have to give specific details of the assessments that were made. And you will also tell what was the previously published ratings or methods. That is the only case when you are actually allowed to use references in the methods section. So generally in the methods section, you never use references. However, if you are quoting a previously published method or a rating which has been used in the past, that is the only time you are permitted to use references. The usual problems with the methods section are that there may not be enough detail, and it's best that you follow guidelines. And the key is that everybody who wants to do the study again should be able to repeat the study. So going back once again, remember, these are the 8 components of the method section, which you should probably highlight as broad subheadings within the method section so that the reviewer is able to find them clearly. I hope you enjoyed listening to the method section, and now we will go on to write the next section.